Welcome to episode 143 of Gods and Heroes of Ancient Greece. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and today we continue with the tale of Odysseus and the story of Odysseus Continues His Tale, the Realms of Shades. The sun dipped into the sea. A steady wind drove our ship to the end of the world, to the land of the Cimmerians, which is wrapped in eternal mist and never lit by the rays of the sun. And there was Oceanus, the river which bounds the earth. We came to the rock and the streams which join their waters, and there we made our offerings, just as Circe had bidden us. The moment the blood from the throats of the sheep flowed into the pit we had dug for the sacrifice, the souls of the dead emerged from the cleft. Young men and old, girls and children came, and many heroes with gaping wounds and blood-stained armor. They thronged about us with sobbing sighs and hovered over the pit. Terror almost got the better of me. I told my companions to burn the ship quickly and pray to the gods. Then I drew my sword and kept the shades from lapping the blood, for Circe had said that first I was to put my question to Tiresias. But before him came the soul of our friend Elpenor, whose body still lay unburied in Circe's house. With tears in his eyes, he complained of his sad lot and pleaded with me to sail back to the island of Aia and bury him with due honors. I promised him that I would, and he seated himself opposite me. Thus we sat and conversed sorrowfully, the shadowy form of Elpenor, and I holding my sword across the pool of sacrificial blood. Soon after this, the shade of my mother, beautiful Anticlea, joined us. She had still been alive when I left for Ilium. Silently, she seated herself and stared at the blood. Never once did she look at me, her son. And now the shade of Tiresias appeared, a golden staff in his right hand. He recognized me at once and said, "Son of Laertes, what prompted you to leave the light of the sun and visit this place of dread? But since you are here, take your sword from the pit, that I may drink of the blood, and so be able to foretell your fate to you." At his words I withdrew from the pit and thrust my sword into the earth. The shade drank the dark blood and began to speak. "You hope, Odysseus, that I shall predict a happy homecoming for you, but a god will put obstacles in your way, and you cannot evade the hand of the Earthshaker, whom you have deeply offended by putting out the eye of his son Polyphemus. Still, in the end, you will return, so do not give way to despair. First, you will land on the island of Thrinacia. If you want to reach the home, do not touch the sacred herds of the sun god which are pastured there. Should you harm them, your ship and your friends will be destroyed. And even if you yourself escape, you will arrive in Ithaca only after many years, alone, poor, and on an alien ship. Even then you will not find happiness, but will encounter arrogant men who are squandering your property and wooing your wife Penelope. You will slay them openly or by guile, but soon after you shall take your oar on your back and wander on until you come to men who do not know the sea, who have no ships and do not season their food with salt. When in that faraway land you meet a man who tells you that you are carrying a winnowing fan on your back, thrust your oar into the ground, make an offering to Poseidon, and go home again. Your realm will prosper, and at long last you will die an old man's death, far from the sea." This was what he told me. I thanked the seer and asked him another question I had in my heart. "Tell me this. There sits the shade of my mother. How can I make her recognize me?" "Let her drink of the blood," the soothsayer replied, "and she will break her silence." Then I let my mother approach, and she drank. Suddenly she knew me, gazed at me with wet eyes, and said, "Dear son, how could you, who are still alive, enter this place of death? Did not Oceanus and the other rivers keep you back? Have you been wandering about since the fall of Troy? Can you not return to Ithaca?" When I answered her questions, I asked her how she had died, for she had still been alive when I left for Troy. And then my beating heart was filled with fear. I inquired about the others I had left behind. "Your wife," she told me, "is unshakably faithful and weeps for you day and night. Your son, Telemachus, sees to your property, and no one has taken over your scepter. Your father, Laertes, leads a peasant's life in the country and never comes into the city anymore. He does not live in a royal chamber or sleep on a soft couch. Like a slave, he lies in the ashes beside the hearth throughout the winter, and his clothes are of the poorest sort. In summer, he sleeps on a heap of fallen leaves under the open sky. And all this he does for grief at your fate. I myself died of sorrow for you, dear son. It was not sickness that took me from the earth." As she spoke, I trembled with yearning, but when I tried to take her in my arms, she dissolved like the shapes in our dreams. And now, other shapes came, many of them women famed on earth. They all drank of the blood of the victims we had slaughtered and told me their story. When they had vanished, I saw a sight that made my heart turn over. I saw the soul of great Agamemnon. Slowly, he moved toward the pit and drank of the blood. Then he looked up, recognized me, and began to weep. In vain, he reached for me with his strengthless hands. Then he answered my eager questions. "Noble Odysseus," he said, "perhaps you think that the sea god destroyed me, or that enemies got the better of me while I was drinking at a feast. But that is not so. Just as one slays an ox at the stall, so Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus killed me in the bath, killed me who had journeyed toward home so full of longing for my wife and children. That is why I now counsel you, Odysseus, not to trust your wife too much. Do not let affection lead you to tell her all your secrets. But I forget. Penelope is virtuous and wise, and the child she nursed when you and I left for Greece, the child Telemachus, is now a youth, who will receive his father full of filial love. Clytemnestra did not even let me feast my eyes on my son Orestes before she murdered me. In any case, I advise you to land secretly on the coast of Ithaca, for no woman can be wholly trusted." With these somber words, the shades of Agamemnon turned and vanished. After him came the shades of Achilles and his friends Patroclus and Antilochus and Ajax the Great. Achilles was the first to drink. He recognized me in amazement. I told him why I had come. But when I said to him, "The most renowned of all the Argives must be happy. Even in Hades is the greatest among the dead," he answered mournfully, "Do not try to find company words about death, Odysseus. Rather, be lord over all the throngs of the dead. I should choose to till the fields like a serf who has no property and no heritage." Then he begged me to tell him about the feats of his son Neoptolemus, and when he had heard of his courage and glorious deeds, he grew more content. Finally, he strode from me with mighty steps and was lost from sight. All the other souls who had drunk of the blood were willing to speak to me. Only Ajax, whom I had once conquered in the fight for the weapons of Achilles, and who had taken his life because of this, stood to one side and nursed his grudge. I addressed him with gentle words. "Son of Telamon, can you not forget your anger even in death? Your anger about the weapons of Achilles, which the gods gave to the Argives only to put a curse on them. For because of them we lost you, who were like a tower in battle. Not we were guilty of your death. It was fate. Then curb your wrath, noble prince, and speak." The shade did not reply, but turned away into the darkness. And now I saw the shades of heroes long dead, of Minos, who judges the dead, and the great hunter Orion, who stood, club in hand, driving away the phantoms of lynxes and lions, of Tityus, on whose liver 2 vultures fed, in punishment for his crimes. Tantalus, who thirsted amid waters rising to his chin. Whenever he leaned to drink, they receded, and the trees, laden with fruit, which grew at his side, whipped upward with the wind whenever he reached for them. His hands clutched the empty air. I also saw Sisyphus, straining to roll a huge boulder up a mountain. He pressed his whole weight against it and worked with his arms and legs. But whenever he got near the top, the stone rolled down, and he had to begin his labors all over again. The sweat poured from his limbs, and dust rose in clouds about his head. Near him was Heracles, that is, the shade of Heracles, for he himself dwells on Olympus, and his wife is the goddess of eternal youth. But his shade was dark as night, and fitted an arrow to the bow, ready to launch it at an enemy. A gold sword strap decorated with the shapes of many different animals hung over his shoulder. He too disappeared, and throngs of other shades hovered around me. I should have liked to see Theseus and his friend Pirithous, but suddenly those shadowy hosts filled me with terror, as if the Medusa had turned her dreadful head and looked at me. Quickly, I left with my companions and went back to the shore of Oceanus. And first I fulfilled my promise to Elpenor. We sailed back to Circe's island. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more tales. Many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.